Hey, this is Natasha Nurse, the host of Sisters on Fire IRL series. And I'm really excited to be speaking with a woman that I know and love. And many of you know her as well. Her name is Candace McCollum. She is the local news, traffic, and weather personality for the Ricky Smiley Morning Show on Power 92.3 in Chicago, Mondays through Fridays from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. Candace is also a native of Naperville, Illinois, and she
Yes.
attended Columbia College Chicago and graduated in 2011 with a degree in radio. And she's been in radio for 4 years and is blessed and thankful to have started her career in Chicago, the third largest market for media. Since beginning her career in radio, Candace has had the opportunity to work with many different brands. And when Candace is not on air, she loves to give back, working within the community on her own personal projects. In March 2017, she started her fashion blog, Curves in Radio, and has collaborated with brands like Yona New York, Curve Culture Boutique, and Juno Active. And she also has had various events that she's participated in and is an advocate for diabetes awareness, which is really important in our community. And more recently, she has put together an event in earlier this year called Curves in Radio, where she brought together some of the top curvy women in Chicago radio from Power 92, V103, WGCI, and 106.3 Chicago for a meet and greet at the top plus size store in Chicago, Eloquii. So without further ado, how are you, Candace?
I am doing great, Natasha. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yes, I'm excited for you to share your story. I think being a woman in radio is super duper cool and really exciting. And so, I guess the first question I would have for everyone listening is just for you to share, how did you make your way to radio, right? What were the pivotal moments in your life that made you say, I want to be a radio personality, and all the things that it took for you to be successful and to be the woman you are today?
Well, I think I always knew that I wanted to be in media some way, somehow. I remember growing up with my mom, and I would always look at the news anchors on television, and I would practice and mimic, what they would do. One of my favorite shopping places ever is QVC, so I would watch that constantly growing up, and then I would try and reenact, myself selling something, selling a product. And I just always knew that where I needed to be was media. I didn't know how, but I do remember my first love was always being a TV news anchor. And my mother always told me that anything was possible. You just have to, go to school and work at it. So I knew college was the way to go. So, of course, in high school, I took my media classes, did my TV and radio classes. Still didn't know which one I wanted to do, but I went to Lewis University, which is a Catholic school here in the Chicagoland area in Romeoville. And my second year there, I was like, I'm learning some things here, but I was like, I know I'm not going to make it to where I want to be if I continue at this school. So Lewis is known for like nursing and aviation, and I'm like, I live like 30 minutes away in Chicago from the top art school in the United States. What are you doing, girl? So I was like, okay. I told my mom and dad I'm transferring, and my mom and dad, with their blessing, they were like, you do what you have to do. So I transferred to Columbia College Chicago. Let's say 2007. 2007 is when I transferred. And I literally started all over from scratch. That's how excited I was, because I'm like, I'm actually at a school where I'm supposed to be for my dream. I took all my radio classes over again. And through that process, I realized that I wanted to be in radio. I did take some TV classes, but radio just had my heart. And I knew I wanted to be on air. I just didn't know how. And a lot of people don't know about radio. There's other things besides radio, besides on air. We have behind the scenes, you have producers, you have promotions, you have sales. And a lot of people don't know that, but I took classes for every aspect of radio, but on air just captured my heart. And in my last year, in order to graduate, you have to have a show at our local station in Chicago at the school, at the college. And so my mentor at the time was like, you have a great voice. She was like, I don't have any more openings right now to have your own show, but she was like, I think you would be great at news, traffic, and weather. So I was like, okay, I'll go for it. Didn't know anything about it, but she taught me, how to write short stories, how to navigate through what I see on like ABC7 or Fox News, and just how to take out those important elements that you need, the who, what, where, when, and why to create a story in like a 30-second span. So I became the news and traffic personality for my local college station. Shout out to WCRX. And once I graduated, I actually re-enrolled in school back at Columbia to take another internship after I graduated, because my internship that I had taken during my time at school before I graduated really didn't get me anywhere. And I'm like, I didn't pay all this money, because Columbia College is very expensive. It's about $30,000 a year. I didn't pay all that money to not be in this field. So that's why I re-enrolled after I graduated, and I got my internship at Power 92 Chicago, which is where I work now. So during my internship, if I didn't have anything to do and I was done with my work and promotions, I would make my way back into the building, and I would stop at all the stations, because our building has 4 stations. And I would make my way and talk to everybody to make myself known, to let people know this is what I want to do. So one day I talked to my now boss, the program director of Power 92, and he was like, well, let me hear you and let me hear what you can do. So I let him hear my air check. So air check for radio is like a 2.5 minute to 3 minute tape of, a program director or a music director hearing what you can do on air as if you were, an actual personality. So he listened to my personality air check, and then he listened to my news and traffic. And he was like, I love both of them. He was like, but I would love for you to train with our current news and traffic personality. Her name is Trudy. He was like, Trudy does 2 out of our stations here. She, sometimes she's gone and she needs somebody to, fill in for her. And he was like, I think you would be perfect. He was like, but you have to get your foot in the door first. So what that meant was, I had to get hired officially. And one of the first jobs that you do as far as for the station that I work for, it's under Crawford Broadcasting. So Crawford Broadcasting, they start you off as a producer for our gospel station, which is Rejoice 102.3. So as a producer, you learn how to work the board. You learn how to operate people's shows. We have people who come in and do live shows, and you just run their board. If they want music, they tell you, what song to play, and you play that during their break. They pick out what type of music bed they want underneath when they're talking. You run that. You have to run commercials. It's a lot of it's production. It's a lot. So I learned that. And so after 8 months of doing that, my boss was like, okay, I think you're ready to transfer over with Trudy. So I trained with her for 3 months, and she taught me the ins and outs of doing her job, which was being a news, traffic, and weather personality for Power 92 and 106.3 Chicago's R&B. And I believe it was March 22nd of 2013. My boss called me, and he was like, it was like 9:30 at night, and he was like, "You ready?" I was like, "I'm ready to go to bed because I have to get up at 3:30 in the morning." What are you talking about? And he was like, Trudy, she can't make it in, and he was like, it's now your time. And radio, that's how it happens. In media, period, that's how it can happen. Like, you train for something, and it's your time when you least expect it, but you have to be ready. And that's why I was so happy to be able to train with her. And I was like, okay, this is my first time on air in the Chicago market. Thousands of people listen to Ricky Smiley in the morning. And then at the time on our sister station, the R&B station, we had the Tom Joyner morning show, which was even more popular. So I had 2 of these big, huge markets on 2 syndicated shows listening to me for the first time in 2013. And I went ahead and I did it. Luckily in both stations, I have 2 producers who helped me, that helped me that first day, obviously. They record me. because I couldn't go live, of course, my first time. So,
Mm-hmm.
I recorded about 5 minutes earlier before each break aired on the station. But the feeling was like, oh my gosh, like, this is what I went to school for. Like, I'm doing it. Like, and to come behind, Trudy, who unfortunately, maybe about 8 months later, she passed away from cancer. But I'm grateful for her, and she taught me a lot, and I had a lot of big shoes to fill. Did that make sense? I had big shoes to fill because she was well respected. She was well respected at the radio station. She was well respected in her craft. She was considered the voice of news and traffic because before I came along, she was doing it for 4 years at that time. And when people started hearing this new voice, there was comments, on certain social media outlets, and you're starting off in this field and you're just not used to seeing, criticism of a certain nature, and it's just like, where's Trudy and who's that new girl and she got this wrong and she can't be like Trudy. But it's you have to roll with the punches. Obviously, if you want to be in media, you got to learn how to see and ignore. It's hard, but that's what you have to learn. And I mean, in the Chicagoland area radio market, there are so many, Black women and Black professionals to look up to. So it's amazing to be considered one of those women. It's hard for me to fathom that because I'm like, I'm still so new to this world of media, like only 4 years. And these women like Sundance, who's been in radio for 25, 30 years, Beyonce Fox, who's been in, radio and media for 30 years as well. The First Lady, that's her radio name. But it's just so many women to look up to, and to work with some of these women. And some of the women also came out to my radio event that I had last month at Eloquii. It's an honor and a privilege to be in the same field as them. So yes.
Wonderful. And I love how thorough you were. I really appreciate that because I think everyone listening, you think, oh, I want to be on the radio, but like, do they really know what it takes, right? And that you not only you weren't just someone who just walked off the street, but you actually did what you needed to do. You put in the time and the energy and the effort and the financing to study this art, right? So that you're not just like doing it off the cusp, but that you understand what is radio about, what is the technology piece about it, what is the psychology piece about it, right? All of that goes into being the person that you are. So what would you say are maybe the biggest challenges that you deal with in your career?
I would say what I've learned, and let's see, to not be complacent, to not be too comfortable. And radio and media, you have to constantly reinvent yourself, and you constantly have to hustle as far as what else can you do besides talking on air. Because nowadays, your program director, your music director, even brands, they're looking outside of what can you offer besides talking on the radio. So that's when you have to tap into, well, what are my interests? Okay, let me talk. What are my interests outside of what I do for a living? What's going to make my brand more valuable? And you have young women all the time who are coming in who are younger than you, who are smaller than you, who, and these days and time, radio has kind of switched to not if you went to school for it, or not if you are truly talented and can really provide a great show. But sometimes people are looking at, in the radio stations, the people who can hire you, they are looking at your numbers on social media. So you can have never had a radio show before, never been on air before, never went to school for radio before now. And if you have 25,000 followers or 30,000 followers in a great brand, just that you created on your own. We want you as a radio station because we would like your followers. And so you have some people who, you know, feel some type of way about that, which is understandable, but that's kind of how radio has changed now. So in return, that puts pressure on, you know, that puts pressure on me. I'm not gonna lie. And it's like, okay, well, come on now, girl, you got to tap into something else, and you have to make a way for yourself. What's gonna make Candace McCollum more valuable? So that's how I started to tap into my other projects that I've had and reaching out to different brands. And, you know, it's what I love to do. I'm not just doing something just to be doing it, but they are really, truly real things I do love. So, you know, it's fun to me, but I would say those are challenges, you know, constantly refreshing yourself and making your value known. Sometimes another challenge for me personally is, you know, I report the news, traffic, and weather. And I love what I do every morning because I'm one of the first voices that people hear in Chicago. But sometimes what I do isn't considered being a real personality because I do not have my own show, right? I'm a part of a national syndicated radio show. So I kind of sometimes, you know, I get in my feelings about that because I'm just like, I'm just as talented. I believe if I was to have my own radio show that I would kill it. So, you know, those are a couple of the challenges. But I will say what I love about where I work now at Crawford Broadcasting is you really do truly get the opportunity to dabble in like everything besides on air. Like if you want to learn how to work on the board, you can do that. If you want to learn production, you can do that. You can ask people for help, but it's just sometimes in life in general, people just they see you as one way, you know, and that's just not in media, but that's in life in general. And sometimes you do have to show people, hey, now I know I do what I do well, but I can't do other things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. I think that when you're saying that, you know, kind of being challenged or having to figure out, you know, when you're can you do more and all that good stuff? Well, how do you deal with those challenges? Is it having, you know, a supportive system of team support? Is it the endeavors that you're pursuing outside of your work? Like, how are you handling that challenge and like overcoming it?
Definitely. So I have a support team. One of my biggest supporters is my radio sister, Sundance, and she currently works on 106.3 Chicago's R&B as she's the midday host from 10 to 2. But before she came over to 106.3, she worked, you know, in Chicago, also at our other stations, major, like WGCI and V103. But she's constantly on me, like, get it, like, you need to find yourself outside of radio. You need something else to fall back on. You know, do what you love in any type of form and fashion, and just don't wait for people to put you on. Put yourself on. And, you know, because I would talk to her all the time about all these ideas that I have. And she was like, you have great ideas. She's like, what are you doing? She was like, you can't wait for, you know, the account executives to see you. She's like, because they're not going to see you. You have to go and do this on, you know, on your own. But she was like, you need to believe in yourself. She's like, you need to get out of your own way. And I will admit that is, you know, one of my, you know, things I need to work on is not having enough belief in myself. But I've changed that, I would say, definitely within the last 2 years, because I have put myself out there. You know, the worst thing somebody can do is say no.
Exactly.
And I've learned that within the last 2 years so much by just emailing people, by contacting people through message, you know, through their DMs on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people do want to talk. They do want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
They do want to offer help, suggestions. They do want to collab. And so one of the first people that I collabed with and reached out to was Eloquii back in like 2016. I got in ADMs. And
Yeah.
I was like, and they were fairly new back in 2016. And I was like, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. And I would just love to work with you guys. And they were like, yeah, we would love to talk with you on a phone call. And I was like, oh, my goodness. And ever
Mm-hmm.
since that phone call back in 2016, we just stayed, in contact, through email. And I would always tell them, like, what I'm working on and what I'm doing. And then that's when they let me know last April. I got an email, and they were like, we would love to feature you on our Spotlight series. And that's when, they flew me to New York, and I was their June Spotlight series, and that was just like an unforgettable experience. So yeah.
Awesome. Now, as a radio personality and just a general like public figure, how has your journey been affected being a woman and being a person of color?
So as a woman, I would say sometimes, as a woman, sometimes you are looked at as not being able to do the job as effectively, or you are looked at as, how should I say it? You're expected to, in your show, in your radio show, to come off a certain way and to maybe not like as effective, come off a certain way and not offend people. So they expect you to have like a certain kind of show.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the men, sometimes they can kind of say what they want to and get away with more.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in the radio, we have to appear as we're single.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, the women in radio. We want you to be the available woman, the pretty woman. And so sometimes in life, you can't promote certain things. As
Mm-hmm.
far as if you do have a family, that's not going to make our listeners more able to tune into you, if that makes sense. You have to look like you're the openly available pretty girl who has her life, ahead of her, and the kids, promoting the kids and the husband and all of that. Mm-mm. Well, on the other hand, sometimes I've seen, a man, he can air all his dirty laundry, and he's, looked at as, well, that's just him. That's just, a man being a man. They can do that.
Now, do you feel that way based on like interactions you've had with people, or is it just kind of you're saying the culture of radio and being a woman in radio?
I would say interactions.
Interesting.
And I would say the interactions and also it's the culture, but sometimes I feel like once you've been in radio for a while, I feel like the people who have been in radio for a while, for years, and who have a tenure in radio, I think they kind of move all of that to the side. Because it's like, I'm me at this point. Like, I've been in this game for 15, 20 years. I know what it is that you're not going to tell me to do, or I know what it is that, I'm going to do, because you're not going to try and get over on me like you get over on the younger, the newer, younger generation. I'm not going to accept that. So, yeah.
Okay. And what about being a person of color?
So I feel like a lot of our culture, being a person of color in radio and media, I'm loving it right now, because I feel like there are so many. I follow so many women of color and curvy women who are in radio and media, and I think it's awesome that we have all of these support groups on Instagram, on social media. We have women on air Black women in media, Black women on air. And so I love to go on there and see, women who are new, women who have been in radio and media for years. And it's like, they're just like me. And some of these women I follow, I contact, ask them for advice. And, I absolutely love it. And I love the fact that I have young women who are in my DMs asking me for advice. And I'm like, again, it's like I'm new, but I will give you what I do know. And whoever else you want to contact, I also encourage them, whoever inspires you, contact them as well. So, I mean, what I will say, there's more women, Black women in media and radio than I thought. And, that just may have been my own ignorance, because I was just thinking, Chicago and nearby cities, but to see other cities who have, Black women in radio and media, it's awesome. It really is. So we are definitely out there, and these organizations that I follow on Instagram and I'm a part of, it has really opened my eyes. So, yes.
Okay. But you don't feel like along the way in your journey, you've not been told not to, had interactions that maybe could be offensive if you were not a person of color, are a person of color, or have been told to represent your community in a certain way? Because sometimes I ask that just because I know, in corporate culture, right? It's like, sometimes I think a lot of people of color feel pressured to be a certain way, right? And to present their who they are and their background in a certain way. And so I was just curious, do you also feel those pressures in radio?
For me, as of right now, I would say no. And I think that's because most of the people that I work with, like my HR and my bosses, they are African American. So, I mean, we are who we are. Our motto at Power 92 is number one in the streets, and we actually do embrace that, that saying. And so it's be who you are and cater to our demographic, which is, the inner city and all of that. So as of right now, no, I can't say that I have experienced that. So yeah, that's just my experience as of right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exciting, right? I think that, what I like about that is that, A, you're being honest, right? And then B, it's everyone's experience, everyone's narrative is different, right? So, if you were at a less diverse station, maybe your answer would be different, right?
I think it would be. Yeah, I think it would be. Definitely would be.
It's
so
exciting.
I'm definitely not one of those people that's like, if I don't experience it, that means it doesn't exist. I'm definitely sure it does exist, but like I said, I have not experienced that at this point in my career.
Okay. I mean, it's a little upsetting about how you're saying how women have to present differently when it comes to their personal lives, and making sure that kind of sticking with that misogynistic idea of, women are someone to always be kind of these sexual objects. And so, God forbid, you're married, or God forbid you have children, and, kind of keep that on the down low. That to me seems very upsetting. And, hopefully more can be done, right, to change that, because men, as you were saying, can happily be married, right, or happily just be, wild and rambunctious, but different rules for different genders. That's got to stop, in all forms of media, in all forms of presentation, in all forms of interaction. So hopefully more can be done about that. Maybe you could talk about that on your blog.
Definitely curves in radio.
But I want to shift gears a little bit to the Sister on Fire conversation. So everyone listening knows that you're Sister on Fire because you're unapologetically awesome, right? And you're a leader in your community and in the public space. And so I guess I want to know from you, how would you define the term Sister on Fire?
Sister on Fire. I would say somebody that goes for she may not know what steps to take, but she's going for it. Her dreams, her goals, somebody who is ambitious, somebody who is passionate. Like I said, and a sister on fire can even be somebody who, like I said, is scared of certain things, but she's not gonna let that fear and being scared take over, because at the end of the day, she's gonna make sure she's stepping out on faith and she's doing whatever she wants to do. So that's what I would say a sister on fire is. And once she does get the first project done or overcomes her first hurdle, like you can't stop her. Like she's unstoppable, and she's gonna keep on going. She may have those days where she's down and she feels a certain type of way, even though what I'm saying, I've accomplished so much, but I have my moments all the time. And I'm like, girl, you need to get it together. Don't forget what you have done. Don't stop, but don't forget what you have done, and just keep on going. Don't look at what so-and-so was doing on the left or right, because that can, oh, Lord, that can mess you up too. Looking at other people. Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
This day and age of social media will have you thinking you are not good enough, that you're doing something wrong, that you're not this and that. And I think that's something that no matter what we accomplish in life, I feel like we all have those moments. I'm sure, she might be a superwoman, Oprah, but I'm sure Oprah has those moments. You know what I'm saying? But it is something that you have to constantly remind yourself. It's how you think about yourself. It's how you have to tell yourself good thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I'm working on now, is self-love and self-care. You know, changing my thought pattern and how I think about things and what I speak, and positive thoughts, because it's so easy to do and say bad things, I feel like sometimes. And it's like, why is it hard sometimes to do the right thing or to be positive? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's easy to just sit on your butt and not go for your dreams.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of really good things that you mentioned there. So first and foremost, right, if everyone listening isn't already aware, the human brain is hardwired for negative, like a negative bias, right? So negative events that have happened are more memorable and last in our memories more than positivity. So that's why it's harder. It actually takes work to be positive. It seems like it's easy, but it's actually not. It's easier to see the glass half empty than it is to see it half full. So you have to work towards being the person you want to be every single day, right? And then also, when it comes to the doubt and stuff, like self-doubt and stuff like that, I think it's easier if you're, like you're saying, that if you're constantly looking externally and seeing what other people are doing and what other things are happening, then you start to compare, right? And I mean, from a religious perspective, from a positive self-affirmation, any positive focus movement would tell you that at the end of the day, what other people think and what other people are doing has nothing to do with you, right? Like, you control yourself, what you think, what you do, what you say, and how you feel.
Right.
And that's all. Like, that's the realm that you're walking in every single day. So, it is important to kind of always remember that and stay grounded in, like, how do you feel about what you're doing? How do you like what you're doing? What do you want to do? Not in relationship to other people or other things you see out there, but in relationship to your internal goals and who you want to be in this world. So it's, Maya Angelou has a really great quote about it. Actually, she says, success is liking who you are, liking what you do, and liking, like, how you feel when you do it. Right. And so, in that equation, right, that has nothing to do with anyone else. Right. As success is self-centered, and it always is.
It is.
And if people can remember that, then, the why of why you're doing something will keep you grounded and keep you moving forward, and much faster than if you're sitting here going through the feed, like, oh my God, Jennifer's doing this. Oh my God. And, like, got to keep it moving. Right. So, I guess for my,
Like, yes, you definitely, it's hard. I mean, and it's easier. It's much easier said than done, but
Yeah, it's
you
work.
definitely have to focus on yourself and just, and then and being in media and then being in radio, it is hard because it's like
Hmm.
you do, as all people do, you do become close to your coworkers, and
Hmm.
you go out with your coworkers sometimes after work, or you have, certain parties, birthday parties or whatever, Christmas parties. But it's like this young lady that you're talking to, like, she's kind of, your competition. You might be on air right now doing what you're doing, but who knows? At the stroke of a hand, she can be doing what you're doing 2 months later. So
And that's why it's important to literally, like, yeah, take that stance and be like, the only person I'm in competition with is myself, right? And so once you're in that lane, then the world is literally just an open oyster for you, and that's it. And there, but what if you continue to, yeah, like, see everything, every opportunity, it becomes as a potential threat, or this, that's, it's like coming from a place of desperation and deprivation, and it doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't make achievement easier, right? It makes it even harder, because as you're achieving, you're constantly, what you're thinking about, that what that other person's doing. So it's
right.
it's important to, again, stay in that lane, and focus on your greatness, and what you can accomplish and what you're working on, and everything else falls in alignment with that. But when it
And
when it
I mean, and that is true, but I do think, like, in radio, like, sometimes it is hard because it's like you can literally be on air and sign off, say, thank you, good morning, or good evening, have a great night, Chicago, and that could be your last show.
mm,
Like,
mhm.
and so I think that's also one of the challenges of radio and media. Sometimes you don't see it coming. I mean, a lot of times people don't see, at any
Yeah,
job, don't see it coming when they get let go. But it's like, it's kind of, it's really
nerve wracking.
yeah, nerve wracking, because it's like, I just said, good morning, have a great morning, Chicago. But it's like, oh my gosh, is that the last time they're gonna hear me? Or there's
Yeah.
a saying in radio that says you've never truly been in radio until you've been fired.
Yeah.
Like, that's a true thing in radio, and it's
And how negative of
like
a statement is that? My gosh.
be, be, because that's the
Yeah.
industry. Like, yesterday, a 10-year show that has been on the air for 10 years, like, they announced on radio yesterday that that was going to be their last show. And so radio is constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
One day you're in, and the next day, you can be out.
It
And
is. So much of life is
yeah,
that way, though, right? Like, I think
yeah, it is.
it's scary, because as you're, like, in the trenches, right? So you're like, oh my gosh, it's like you always feel like you're on fire, and or the fire is always near you. But at the end of the day, what I, at least what I believe, and what I share in my business and my philosophy, is that, if that end is coming, and I've had the door close in front of me, and been surprised and all that good stuff. When it happens, right, there's a reason why it's happening, right? There's a reason why an opportunity is no longer an opportunity. And if you fear that, that final pink slip, or that final goodbye, then you're not really present in what you do have, right? And so focusing on what you do have, focusing on how to grow what you have, and if something comes to an end, there's another bigger thing coming down your way, but you have to believe that. Otherwise, you're always going to be in a perpetual state of fear and anxiety, and it's going to take away from your actual presence of what you're doing. And so it's not helpful, but it's scary. Life is, it's an interesting ride we're on. Very interesting.
Yes, yes, it is. And I feel like sometimes, and even my boss, like, he used to ask me all the time. He was like, after there would be big, shake-ups and changes, he would be like, he's like, you still want to do this? Like, you sure you still want to be in this industry? I'm like,
Wow.
I'm like, yes, I am, because you have people, like I said, who have, been carrying a show for years, and they can produce the high ratings
Yeah.
and all of that. And it's like, even with that, it's like, whatever reasons they have to be let go, they just have to be let go. So it's like, sometimes it's like, dang, even if I am doing a good job, like, y'all still go.
That's life, right? Like it's sometimes it's not in your hands, and that's how it goes. But you move and you pivot. And I mean, look, Oprah was fired, right? One of the most successful people that will ever have lived on this planet, right? Someone said no to her, which is absurd to any of us, right? Like, how could you say no to Oprah, right? Or
Right, right.
look at Harry, the author of Harry Potter, the Harry Potter series, right? She got rejected
Mhm.
by 12 different publishers. It was on the 13th that said yes, right? Like, rejection is a part of this journey, right? And as Denzel Washington says, you have to fall forward. You got to move forward, and sometimes that means falling, and sometimes that means some very crummy experiences. But there's such great learning, and there's such great teachable moments in those lessons that are provided. So it's, you embrace it, right? You embrace the bad. If you want the good, you have to take the bad, right? There's another, I forget who
Yep.
says that, but if you want the sunshine, you have to put up with the rain, right? Like, you gotta, or the rainbow, you gotta put up with the rain. Like, it's all a part of this interesting ride. But I'd like to, that was a really good session. So I hope everyone listening is like, yes, sister, yes. But I want to know, for you, would you say that you had women in your life that lived up to kind of the definition of being a sister on fire?
Definitely, definitely. I wouldn't be able to do anything, of course, without my mother.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I feel bad because I do feel like sometimes I don't give my mom enough credit. But she has always been there to tell me, go for your dreams. Even now, she's a little bit more understanding than my father. My father is just kind of like, he's just like not understanding, any of the radio business. He's not understanding branding. Everything that I do outside of radio, it's the first question is, are you getting paid? And it's like,
Mhm.
daddy, it's like, I need you to understand that this is helping me get my name out there. But my mom, she worked as a secretary, at Rush Presbyterian in Chicago, and she did that for 40 years.
Mhm.
And so I admire her for, working the same job for 40 years. But my mom has always told me she looks up to me, and I know she does, because she'll tell me, like, you are doing something that I wish I could have done. And she was like, I
Mhm.
know your dad. She's like, I know your dad hits on you, because my parents are 70 and 66, so they come from, you need a stable this, you need a 401, you need a pension, and right
Mhm.
now, that's not the case. But she was like, don't stay at a job for so long and you don't like it. She was
Yeah.
like, I wish I could have, she was like, people would tell me all the time that I had a nice voice and that I should go into media and, do voiceovers. And she was like, and I never did that for whatever reasons. She was like, I just got complacent. I just, I knew what I knew, and I provided a good life for you and your brother. She was like, but don't be somewhere where you do not want to be. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, definitely, my mother for sure. So yeah.
Okay, I love that. And I love that you shared that, because so many of us who dare to write, like, be the unconventional person, that you're constantly challenged by your loved ones who are supposed to be your number one supporter. But what I have learned in my own journey as a woman, who I have an older parent as well, and I come from a Caribbean background. And if you know anything about Jamaican culture, they are not necessarily super about, like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, go ahead and do whatever you want, be an artist, like, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a professor, right, be an accountant, be,
Right.
credentialed, and then you have meaning in life. I at a certain point I had to realize that, my journey is for me and me alone to understand, to appreciate, and to follow through. It doesn't matter if other people don't understand my journey. Good for you, right? Like, it's, God bless and have a wonderful day, because At the end of the day,
Right.
it's your journey, right? You're not taking people on this journey with you. You've got to live this for yourself. So it's okay if people don't get it. It's okay if people question how you go about it. It's all about figuring out how you want to move forward and make it what you want it to be. But it is fascinating how family can sometimes they can be a roadblock themselves, right? Because they won't get out of your way, right? They're like, no, but you should do things this way, and they keep giving these expectations that are theirs, and fine, they might in their mind be validated. Good for them, but
Right.
you only have one life, man. You've got to live it for you. You can't live it for anyone
and
else.
and and that's what I still tell my dad. I'm like, I was like, you were more supportive when, I was in school for this thing called radio. And it was like, now that I'm in it, you're just like, no, you need to, it's time for you to leave this field. Like, he's just like, it's time for you to leave this field. Nothing's coming from it. If I'm at home and he'd be like, because, he's a vet. So he'll be like, the VA is hiring. I'm like, oh, that's great. Thanks for that. CTA, which is our local transit here in Chicago, and he used to work for CTA. So he'll be like, CTA is hiring. The fire department where your brother works, they're hiring. And it's like, and I'm like, that's great. Thanks, and, or sometimes it'll be like, if, you had started working as CTA back in 2000 and whatever, you would have had 10 years by now. And it's just like, oh my goodness, it's just
Yeah.
constant. Yeah.
Smile. I smile when my aunts or someone asks me, oh, well, what do you really do? Just, yep. Mm-hmm. Just explain it if you feel like explaining. But even that, if you don't feel like explaining, there are times where I have purposely made an attempt to really kind of cull the fat when it comes to who I spend my time with. Because if you constantly, again, are feeling like you're meeting with people or spending time with people who are devaluing what you do or who you are, or kind of trying to make you justify yourself to them, that's ludicrous. That's absolutely ludicrous. So,
It
uh,
is.
personally, the Virgo in me has no problem being like, peace, it's been real. But everyone's got to figure that out. But I would just suggest that, listen, as we speak today, as you've been very open and honest, and I know that everyone listening can really appreciate that, you've got to live your life. And I think that's the whole point of this series that, you're a part of, because it's everyone's deciding to do what they want to do with no, no, I don't want to curse, but, just kind of like, you're going to do what you're going to do unapologetically, right? You're going to live your life, and you're going to continue to make waves, be a disruptor, and have an influence, right? And show other people, right? By you doing what you're doing, other young girls and young girls of color can what? See and hear, wow, she did this. So
Hmm.
what? I can now do this. That is so important. That just being that representation for our youth is why our youth will then surpass us, because they saw us do it first. So then they do it, and they do it better and bigger, and and so
Right.
it you've got to keep doing what you're doing. So I guess my last question, because I really appreciate all the time you've given me, is how can people just like follow you, if you're doing more events, or if people want to get in touch with you to maybe have a deeper conversation about radio and how they can collaborate with you, where give all the details for that.
Okay, so I post everything that I'm working on my Instagram, and so that's Candace on air, Candace on air. You can email me if you have any questions or want to collaborate at candaceonair@gmail.com. Again, that's Candace on air@gmail.com. And I'm open and willing to work with anybody. I just want to, elevate and make connections, network, because there's so many of us out here that are doing great things, and I love this opportunity that you're giving to me and other women to, put ourselves out there, to let each other know there's a lot of sisters on fire that are out here. And, I think listening to other women's stories is really, really inspiring. So, like, this is an amazing outlet that you are, have. And so I thank you for that. But there's so much that I'm working on, and it's funny. You pray for, these opportunities, and then when they come, you're like, oh, they're here. And you're just like, ooh, I'm busy, child. So next month is like really going to be busy. So I'm on my first body positivity panel where I graduated from at Columbia College, Chicago, and that's next Wednesday, April 4th. And so, I'm really excited, but I'm on the panel with like other or influencers, and they're considering me an influencer, and I'm like, I've only been doing this for 4 years. And so that's where like I have to learn to like stop devalue. That's my problem. I'm sure it's a lot of other people's problems, but it's like if somebody sees something in you, go with it, Candace. Just hush. Go go with it, and you're making a difference, because clearly God wouldn't present something to you if you weren't doing what you're supposed to be doing. So that's exciting. I have my first table read on April 8th for Radio Silence. And so, I'm nervous about that too, because I'm like, this is the first, time I've ever been in a movie. But everybody so far has, that I've met through Facebook who's a part of the project has been really, really nice and welcoming. So it's kind of dope to say that I'm a part of a table read. You know what I'm saying? I feel
official. Absolutely. That's so exciting, right? Like, who could have thought, right, growing up, be like, oh, I'm going to be in a movie. Like, that's awesome.
Right. Ashley Stewart, I'm going to be working with Ashley Stewart again next month for the third time. And so they are doing their Finding Ashley tour, where they're making like 5 stops around the country. And so they're coming to a local store here in the Chicagoland area, and they're looking for 2 women to represent at the Finding Ashley final event, which is in September, I believe, but I'll be a judge for that. Then they're coming to the station to interview me, so that's exciting. I'm going to be a judge for a pageant show on the 14th and 15th of April. I'm going to start my curves and radio back up again, because I feel like that was something that was a lot of women were taking on to that, and I stopped. And so I kind of, it's like, okay, a lot of women have been like, what happened to, didn't you used to do, what are you doing? So, when you find out that people actually read what you are producing and actually take to it, it kind of rejuvenates, but sometimes you feel like you do stuff and people aren't paying attention, but people are. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And, your voice matters always, and you never know who's reading. You never know who's scrolling. You never know. So if you believe in it, keep doing it. And, and sometimes the reward, I know that we live in an instant gratification kind of society where it's like, ooh, I wrote a blog post. It needs to go viral today, right? Like, no, maybe not. But after like 2 years or 3 years of blogging, maybe you do get that first viral post, or maybe you do get the opportunity to go on TV or go on radio, so it's all about putting in that time. And it's not about how many likes and clicks and follows, but it's about, are you disseminating value? Are you giving people content that they need? Are you improving your other people's lives? Are you enjoying the process and also making life, more interesting or better for others? And if so, then, there'll be lots of prosperity and positivity that comes from that. And it's not about the analytics of what you're doing. Sometimes it's a little bit bigger than that.
Right.
Awesome.
So, I mean, and I'm starting to work on air checks, because I do want to have my own show eventually.
Good.
And, so I'm working on that, because, sometimes if people don't see you in a certain light, you have to make people see you in a certain light. So I'm trying to put myself out there in that field, and I would love to get into television. So, yes.
So you are busy, 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 and you are on fire. And I'm so grateful that you were so honest and open in this interview and sharing your story for the Sisters on Fire IRL series. And I thank you. Thank you for being amazing. Thank you for working hard. Thank you for making a difference.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for this opportunity. And again, this platform, it's amazing to see what a lot of women have accomplished out here across the country and the world. So thank you.